I alluded on my last caller about Ben Bernanke and his lecture series, although I might want to put lecture in quotes. Propaganda, the Fed is out there trying to get people to believe this false narrative of the Fed. I mean, Ben Bernanke is out there on a roadshow really denying the Fed's responsibility in the housing bubble and the financial crisis, rewriting history. Ben Bernanke is supposed to be an expert on the Great Depression. If you look at his slideshow presentation and what he's telling, the people at George Washington University, he is so clueless about why we had a depression. In his whole presentation, nowhere does he talk about the fact that the Fed kept interest rates too low during the 1920s. Nowhere does he bring that up. Nowhere does he bring up the fact that the stock market bubble of the 1920s and real estate bubble was a function of the cheap money policies of the new Federal Reserve. He doesn't mention that at all. He doesn't mention the problems with the Hoover administration and all the interventionist policies. He mentions about the liquidation policies of the Fed. He criticizes the Fed not because they were too loose during the 1920s, but because they were too tight, in his opinion, in the 1930s, that they didn't print enough money. That wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't that they were too tight in the 30s, is that they were too loose in the 1920s. Of course, that's the same mistake he's making now, except he's even looser. And the problem wasn't that the Federal Reserve was not intervening or believed in the idea that the debts need to be liquidated. That wasn't the problem. The problem is that the government didn't do that, that the Hoover administration did not follow the advice of the Secretary of the Treasury. Now, in one of the slides, Ben Bernanke shows that advice, but he doesn't bother to point out that the advice was not heeded, that Hoover did everything he could to intervene. And when Roosevelt ran against Hoover, he criticized him for all the spending. He promised to balance the budget. Of course, when he got into office, he used Hoover's interventionist as the model for the New Deal. And made it so. Ben Bernanke is clueless about what caused the Great Depression. He's clueless about what caused the recent recession and financial crisis. So this is a very dangerous man. I think I've labeled this guy now public enemy number one for the U.S. economy. He's going to be doing a considerable amount of damage. And we're never going to be able to have any true progress in this country while Ben Bernanke is the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Although, is it possible that there could be somebody worse that might take his place? Yeah, I suppose, but it would be difficult. Let me put it that way. You would have to look hard to find somebody who could do a worse job than Ben Bernanke. It wouldn't be easy, but you could. I'm sure you could find the person. I'm sure that, in fact, whoever does replace him, there's a good chance that they will have succeeded in finding somebody even worse. After all, they had to find somebody worse than Alan Greenspan. That wasn't that easy a task, but they accomplished it.